No? Battery's green. Oh. Over here. Where was I? So, Quine, this is, of course, not the same time period at all, but just so you know, at the end of the course, when we talked about Quine, he famously, in his article, Two Dogmas of Empiricism, which is on the web, you can just go to and not only is a Wikipedia article about it, but you could also find it. It's out there. So even though I believe it is actually still copyright, but you know how the internet is. And I'll post a link to it when the time comes. But what he demonstrates in this article is that universal statements have an equivalent particular statement. And so the distinction between these two types of knowledge actually dissolves. So there's really only one type of knowledge. You can equate them. So that's kind of, but that's not even in the potential scheme of things that far back. For Aristotle, this is the invention, really. I think of this as an invention. But the next step, after you get what a statement, the different kinds of statements there are, is, let's switch back to Aristotle's logic. And what you end up with are arguments. What is an argument? An argument requires three statements, and all three statements have to be either A, E, I, or O type statements. Right? If you just have two statements, you can say things, well, cows are dumb, horses are smart, but there's no conclusion, so you don't have an argument yet. But if I say, all terrorists are evil, Saddam Hussein is a terrorist, what's the conclusion that you can think of right away? Saddam Hussein is evil. And so that demonstrates not only is that a good argument, a valid argument, could argue over the premises, whether or not we agree with the premises. Are all terrorists evil? Iran thinks that Americans are terrorists. So, where do we go with that?
Kind of are.
Pardon?
We kind of are.
From their point of view. From their point of view. But their point of view.
If a terrorist is still a terror, then
And we have bigger bombs.
you have bigger bombs.
We have bigger bombs.
And your gun.
And we know where they are.
Yeah. Not a very good.
Which makes me think that some of them are pretty dumb when they sell arms to people and they say, go shoot them. Yes. You know, it's labeled made in Iran. You know how they do. Sorry. Shouldn't make fun of that. 3 of our people died this last
Yeah.
week. Yeah. However, what kind of argument was that? That argument was known as Barbara. How so? The figures. If we go to the figures, and the, let's see if we can, this might not really be the best page for this. Yeah, I don't really like this one on this. Let's see if I could find another one. So, when you look at an argument that contains 3 A statements, which that was, by the way, all of the things that are terrorists are in the set of things that are evil. The set of things that are evil. Second statement, everything that Saddam Hussein is in the set of things that is in the set of things that is a terrorist, right? So that's an A statement as well. And the conclusion statement, everything that is Saddam Hussein, that set, is in the set of things that are evil, right? So I have 3 A statements, and it's in figure 1. Why is that? Oh, these are, okay, so here it says figure 1. So it's an AAA statement in figure 1. What is a figure? How does the figure work? These are all different arguments. Let me go find. Okay, well. This is another argument that's the same form, even though the subject and the predicate of the terms are different. So all humans are mortal, Socrates is human, therefore Socrates is mortal. That's also the form AAA1. The figure is based on primitive, but occasionally necessary, right? So, if I have 3 terms in a valid argument, I have what's called the subject term, I have the predicate term. How do I know those? The conclusion must contain the subject of the argument and the predicate of the argument. The other 2 statements will have the predicate term it goes this way, right? Okay. So I have all terrorists are evil. Saddam Hussein is a terrorist, therefore Saddam Hussein is evil, right? So with this figure, which is figure 1, you see where the middle term lies in the 2 statements. That makes this one the figure, right? The second one, the second argument you have the middle term on this side. Both of them. You see where that goes, right? Still have the conclusion, of course, what will be SP, right? SP, now you move the middle term over here, and you have P and S. Notice that the first argument line will be always containing the predicate of the argument that is in the conclusion, and the second argument line is always going to have the subject of the conclusion in it, and both of them then will have the middle term, and the last one over here, which I didn't leave myself enough space for, will have the middle term here and here. So it's just, so you end up with this kind of mnemonic that enables you to remember figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, figure 4. You don't have to remember all this. This is really more of a logic course material. But the idea, of course, is that when you're arguing validly for Aristotle, you're using these 3 types of statements, and all you're really doing is taking information you already know and concluding more information from what you already know. This is a deductive system, same as mathematics. You don't have inductive reasoning in mathematics. The difference between deductive reasoning is you're going from information you already know to information that follows logically from that. And it can be valid. If you're doing inductive reasoning, on the other hand, a typical example of that would be, well, that swan is white. Oh, there's a swan. It's white. There's another. You usually have four, right? Aristotle thought if you saw four of something, that guaranteed that all of them were that way. That's all that he thought was necessary, right? So, all swans are white. Because the four swans I just saw, they were all white. Therefore, all swans are white. What we do know, of course, are that there are black swans. The brown swans? I don't think so. Not yet, anyway. But in any case, black swans are famous because of that, right? For the longest while, people thought all swans were white. Not valid, but an inductive argument. Psychologically persuasive, right? But when you look up black swans, and what we want is the book based on that. That's not the one I want. But the black swan is highly improbable, but inductive arguments based on experiences, from that you hypothesize that they all must be like that, same as these. It's invalid because, of course, you're liable to discover a black swan after you've been absolutely convinced for hundreds of years that all swans are white. So, and oddly, by the way, scientific reasoning is inductive reasoning, which is why scientific reasoning is hypothetical. I think that, based on these experiments, that this is the case. You might eventually discover that it isn't. There's something else going on. However, Aristotle's only concerned with deductive reasoning, and remember, his thinking is categorical. So what he's convinced is that all we have to do as scientists is go out there and describe everything the way it is, a true statement, and then based on writing all that stuff down, we'll know everything. By the way, he was very persuasive. In fact, if we go and look at here's the metaphysics, but if we go up and look at Aristotle's works, you could see, what do we have? The Athenian Constitution, which they never used, by the way. Categories on dreams, where he describes the nature of dreams and things. On the gait of animals, different animals have a different way of walking, and so on. So he's going to meticulously describe the differences in that. On generation and corruption, basically birth and death, right? So that's on the heavens. By the way, Aristotle believed that the earth was the center, and he did believe it was a sphere, and in fact his measurements came pretty darn close to contemporary ways of measuring the earth. And it was easy. They figured, as ships are sailing off, they disappear at the bottom first, and then the tops disappear, leading them to think, clearly the earth is curved. Easy. And it was they did work trying to figure out, what's it like, 100 kilometers north or south and so on. On interpretation, so this is on poetry and things of that sort, trying to understand how we interpret things. On longevity and shortness of life, how can you live a long life? Let's describe all the interesting characteristics. On memory and reminiscence, how do we remember things, etc. The metaphysics, which hopefully you had a chance to look at some of it. Meteorology, that's weather, how the weather works. And his thinking was that the outer sphere of the cosmos was kind of like a sphere that is rotating around. And as a result, you could see little pinholes through it, and the light from the outer sphere shines through those. And as it rotates, it moves the spheres that are inside it, and then those spheres move, and then and the planets are the ones that are on the spheres that are moving around in that. Also known as the angels, the choirs of angels, and so on. So they're also making music. That's Pythagoras, remember? But you put all that together, and the moon, as its sphere goes around, it stirs the air, and the air then moves, and that's what causes things to happen on the earth. It's from the winds, etc. So it's an earth-centered position. By the way, the main person associated with that is Ptolemy.